Welcome to the UST Education recorded webinar series. This session is powered by US Transactions. UST is a boutique payment processing firm providing you with personalized service. We offer agnostic, best-fit technology solutions for associations, nonprofits, and enterprise clients.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to this webinar that we're doing together with UST. The subject of today is why ERP-First eCommerce outperforms mainstream platforms like Shopify, Magneto, BigCommerce, but others as well. We'll focus on the Microsoft Business Central ERP system today. Yeah, this is interchangeable and we'll keep it as generic as possible so you get as many learnings as you can from this. My name is Chris de Visser. I have over 15 years of experience in the Microsoft channel, in particular with B2B e-commerce. I'm originally from the Netherlands, but I'm based out of New York. My contact information is here in case you have further questions or would like to know more. And of course, I'm excited to present to you today. A quick agenda. We're talking about the e-commerce challenge. Everybody's familiar with Amazon. Everybody is familiar with Shopify nowadays, but it's different for each and every company how to use these platforms and systems. Why mainstream platforms fall short sometimes. We'll talk about that. What the ERP-first approach means for organizations, and real-world impact, and any Q&A if there are any questions. The learning objectives, I won't read them all out, but we'll talk about ERP-first e-commerce, see how manufacturers, distributors, and B2B and B2C companies use ERP-integrated solutions, how a unified approach makes sense, and we'll provide a framework so you can evaluate platforms when it comes down to it. Why do your customers work with you? That is a question that we often ask our clients. You are typically a company that produces items and would like to sell them. You have an ERP system, an enterprise resource planning system, where you maintain all the data about your customers, your products, your inventory, your prices, and that could be different for everybody in different combinations. That is all important, but it shouldn't really affect how your customers work with you. So that's where we'd like to start. How do you work with your customers? Why do they buy from you? And how can you best facilitate and make that as smooth and streamlined as possible? Often, of course, that comes down to these three basic concepts: trust and reliability. It's important that they know you, that they can rely on you, that the information you provide is accurate. They often are returning customers in the B2B space. They come for specific items that maybe only you sell, but at least there's a relationship there. And that often turns into a partnership where they keep coming back and expand with you as well. A question for the audience: how do you take your order today? There could be different variants, right? Some of our clients buy primarily through a web store, sell, I should say, through a web store. Often it's still a combination also of a web store and an email phone. Then, of course, you can have sales reps in the mix. Believe it or not, we still sometimes run into clients that do not have any e-commerce activities, not direct or even indirect through Amazon or any other marketplace environment. So let us know your answer to that, of course, in the chat if you would like to discuss further. What's the problem with mainstream e-commerce platforms? So first of all, it doesn't have to be a problem for everybody, right? It really depends on the case and how you sell, what you sell, to whom you sell. whether the mainstream platforms fulfill the need for you. The big ones out there, BigCommerce, Shopify, Magento, known platforms that have demonstrated tremendous growth over the years, but they each come from a slightly different angle, right? BigCommerce and Magento are more enterprise platforms that integrate with all kinds of other third-party systems. Shopify is very easy to get going on, has payment more as a business model behind it. Yeah, it works great for a lot of clients, but again, not for everybody. And that's the point that we want to make here. Do your research, investigate how you plan on using it, how you plan on interacting with your clients before you pick the platform, of course, because they're not all the same. Disconnected systems lead to disconnected experiences. The previous slide showed the platforms that typically assume one price for each product for every client and maybe some discount for all clients applicable based on a promotion or anything like that. But it doesn't facilitate necessarily a scenario where each client could have a completely different price, maybe specific inventory calculations. That is often an issue in the B2B space, right? Where you have that logic, you allow for that through your ERP platform, most notably Business Central. And then you have mismatches between your back office system, the ERP, and the front end through which you sell and are in contact with your clients. That often needs to be corrected, manually re-enter orders or make corrections on it. That requires people to dig in. Excuse me. That could lead to frustrated customers because the information they see on the screen is not correct, and they know that, and they start calling. So now you're not only taking a manual reorder entry, you're also answering phone calls. And that, of course, all leads to inefficient operations and frustration with the clients that simply just want to place an order online and have the goods come to their door as quickly as possible. Very often also third-party connectors are required. In all those platforms, there are some integrations and connectors available, but you need to purchase them from a third party, and then the finger pointing starts happening. Who is responsible if there's an issue? Who are you going to call if you need support? If something is inaccurate on the website, but it's maybe caused by the ERP, or maybe it's caused by the connector. Everybody starts to point at each other, and you're kind of have to call everybody for each and every time you have a question, and not very efficient again for your organization. And as you can see, there are many variables that come into play. Pricing, inventory, products, customers, financials. All that information is in the ERP present, and that is typically the single source of truth for an organization. But then your e-commerce platform needs that information as well, and there could be missings in data, and that's often very difficult to catch and then to repair in hindsight. The hidden costs of connectors, right? I touched upon that before, but they require constant maintenance. You'll get sync errors where you need to create manual workarounds and corrections, and updates could break critical business logic. An update from a connector could have effect on the ERP and the e-commerce and the other way around. And again, who are you going to call if such issues arise? Because in all fairness, these things require constant work, right? It's not a set it and forget it kind of environment. You are making improvements. The other platforms are making improvements. You just need everything to keep working very well in harmony together. And ideally, you have one organization that you can reach out to in case issues arise. Are there other additional challenges that mainstream e-commerce solutions have? What we hear from our clients that could lead to challenges is if organizations have multiple warehouses, multiple units of measures. A lot of e-commerce platforms are not designed, again, from scratch for that ERP integration. So they only assume certain inventory logic, the way they calculate inventory, not how the ERP does that. A lot of these platforms also have a form of GMV pricing. So it takes a percentage of the revenue that goes through the site, either as part of transaction cost or just through licensing based on how much revenue runs through the web store. And what we often see is that our clients run very small margins on their online sales. So any percentage you could save there is pure margin that you lose in the case of GMV pricing. Then just the amount of items, customers, and order tagging you can do. Historical orders that are placed on the phone that are not visible on the website, or the other way around. Of course, you want a single source of truth for this information as well. And if you start tracking all that information in different systems, you again run the risk of missings there. Refunds, how to deal with that. People can return and do RMAs through the website. How is that reflected in the ERP? Or maybe they make a phone call and would like to see a refund, and that isn't properly reflected in the website. Again, something that can be done, but to always keep it 100% accurate is very difficult in disjointed systems. Very often you have to pick and choose between a B2B scenario where you allow for a lot of custom logic for every customer, different rules, and a B2C experience, something that we all as consumers bump into on a daily basis by using Amazon. It's all very convenient. It's all very transaction oriented. And these things make its way into the B2B space, but they are often, again, not designed with a customer logic in the background as the main driver for that. Available stock is not always accurate. That's another one that we often see. Inventory reconciliation to the ERP challenges, true ups that are difficult to apply, orders that are happening at the same time. How is that reflected properly in the ERP if you're low on inventory? Non-personalized support. Again, the finger pointing. All these platforms always would like you to solve your problems with someone else first. Customer and order tags not synced to Business Central. So again, a disjointed set of data. And what if you work with other ISVs, what they call them, independent software vendors, for payment, like, for example, use TPay, but other scenarios with shipping and tax. There are specialized add-ons for the ERPs, like Business Central, that are specialized in these subjects. And they often require a deep level of integration into the ERP. And how is that then properly reflected in the online system that doesn't have these native integrations with those platforms as well? Let's talk about Shopify in particular. That is, of course, the one that we hear the most. And there's a lot of great Shopify sites out there. And what we see where it performs well is when it's direct to consumer or B2C products, where pricing is standardized, inventory is in a single location or very predictably, product variants are limited, and the storefront operates independently from Business Central. It gives a lot of flexibility around marketing and the theme, and that is a priority for organizations that pick Shopify and are generally happy with it. ERP-driven businesses would struggle because ERP pricing cannot run natively in real time. You have to do synchronizations or caching, or you bump into some performance issues. Customer-specific pricing must be duplicated, so it cannot do a direct lookup in the ERP. It will replicate the entire system in Shopify. In today's day and age, there's a lot of discussion also about where does the data live and what can these organizations do with my data. We have no indication that Shopify uses it for different reasons, but it's easy to change the terms and conditions and change of ownership, and it's just hard to track. That's where it comes down to. Inventory relies on sync jobs, not on live ERP rules. Like we spoke about before, multi-warehouse and bin logic requires customizations. You have limited options around unit of measure. That is big, of course, in B2B, where you talk about pallets and cases and things like that. Complex workflows depend on apps and connectors, and the B2B checkout often requires Shopify Plus at an added cost. So it quickly becomes also on a pricing level more difficult to deal with that. The issue isn't Shopify, of course. It's the architecture. ERP-driven businesses operate on complex pricing engines. Their inventory availability is rule-based, not static, and terms and workflows that are different for every customer of the web store live in the ERP. And e-commerce must reflect that ERP reality in real time. If not, then friction is inevitable, and that is leading to a lot of headaches internally in the organization. The second question today, where is the friction in your business, your organization? Is that around pricing and inventory accuracy across the systems, about manual order entry or corrections, managing the app and connectors, or B2B complexity and expensive cost of those environments? Then what's the solution, or what do we propose is the solution? An ERP-First eCommerce platform. And there's a couple out there in the market. They've been built from the ground up to integrate with ERP. So they knew ERP was there. They knew what data lives in ERP around prices, inventory, customers, and it's not reinventing the wheel. It is hooking into the ERP to open that up for usage in an e-commerce world, while still, of course, being in control. And that goes hand in hand with the other elements of your internal systems. Business logic, customer data, complex pricing, inventory and multi-warehouse, the sales team, possible CPQ, configure price quote, and configurator options, all kinds of logic and rules that apply to your organization and how you sell to your clients, and that you want to have available in the web store. And again, if you have to build that from scratch or replicate it in a system that hasn't been designed for that from scratch, is costly, not only to build, but also to maintain. And why does it matter? Customers expect real-time accuracy. Like I said, people got spoiled in their day-to-day use of websites. They have a lot of information available to them to make decisions off of, and expect similar experiences in their work lives. Sales teams require visibility. So not only is it an external tool, it can also be used as an internal tool for sales teams to look into these things. And of course, finance needs reliable data. The executive team in general needs reliable data. How many did we sell? To whom did we sell? What is left in inventory? Do we need to produce more? Or even further down the road, if you have items that consist out of other items, how is that affecting your inventory, right? The advantages of an integrated e-commerce approach is that you have those native ERP integrations. You're not limited to a connector and what it does and any possible syncing issues. The data flow is accurate. That really lowers the operational costs, and that leads to happier customers because they see that in the price and they see it in the experience. and you will see it in the internal processes that you don't have to constantly have to apply corrections to these things. Here it's kind of shown on the screen, the revenue growth, right? And how that flows through streamlined order processing, enhanced customer experience to real-time data synchronization with the ERP, and right back to the beginning. What do partners have to say? We work with the ERP partners, but we own the e-commerce piece. We'd like to say we're that one throat to choke. But what we hear from partners that have seen many, many scenarios, I've done a few Shopify implementations. They were enough for me to realize I won't be doing them anymore. The connectors are limited and broken. Again, that could vary from customer to customer, but if you have a bit of complexity in the way you operate and how you interact with your clients, which is often the case in the B2B world, that is something you want to investigate very thoroughly before you pick a platform. Okay, I want to open it up to some Q&A. Are there any questions in the chat or anything that I can answer? I think not, but if you do, please submit. Like I mentioned before, I am with Commerce Build. We are an ERP e-commerce expert. We've been in this space for 20 years. Our solutions have always been built for an integration with an ERP. We are fully integrated with Business Central. We have global support, literally from New Zealand to the West Coast of North America. And we can be a one-stop shop for the planning, designing, connecting, and building of your e-commerce store in conjunction with Business Central. Lastly, I want to say ERP-First eCommerce isn't about replacing what works. It is about connecting what matters, right? And that's the message we want to hit home. There's a lot of systems and data in your organization that you put a lot of time, effort, and money in to keep accurate and stay organized on. And it would be a shame if you then have your website where people interact with your organization be disconnected from that. So it's important that you have that single source of truth in the form of the ERP. And with that, I would like to say thank you. Quite a bit ahead of schedule, but happy to take any.